Hi, everybody. Lauren Smithson here, Sapphire Plexus brand ambassador. And I'm really excited to share with you guys questions 7 and 8 of the Vision Driven Leader. And I feel like, and I say this for every book, but there's a lot of really good and valuable information here that is going to be really helpful for us. So hopefully you all read or at least are going to follow along today and have some good thoughts for us too. But I'm excited to share what my favorite takeaways were. So question number 7 was, can you sell it? And this is in regards to selling a vision. So how do you get your team to buy into the vision? How do you sell that to them? In the book, he started with talking about this specific example of Sears and Montgomery Ward and how both used catalog sales for a really long time. They were both doing well with catalogs. And then Robert E. Wood was hired by Montgomery Ward, and he was a very forward-thinking person. He was vision-driven, thinking of like where things were headed. And so he was saying, well, I think things are steering away from catalogs, and we're now gearing more into like retail stores would be a really great way to have a good profit. And Montgomery Ward was like, not so sure about that. So Sears was like, hey, we'll hire you and we see your vision. We'll go with it. So they opened their first store in 1925. And then Wood, within the next 10 years, Wood was promoted to president of the company. And then they had within that 10 years, 374 stores nationwide. So their revenues went from, it says 200 million to 3 billion. So his forward thinking and vision really propelled the whole retail industry truly. And that's kind of like what we're talking about, right? Like, can you sell it to somebody? So he sold his vision to Sears and they bought into it and thought it was great and went with it. And Montgomery Ward was not so sure. And so they kind of fell behind in terms of moving forward in their business. So we really want to be able to sell our vision to a lot of different types of people. So that's what the next part is. We have to be able to sell it to 4 key stakeholders. And what I'm going to do is go through what he says are the stakeholders and then what I interpret that through our Plexus lens of what those stakeholders mean for us. Because I think it's a little bit different than being like the CEO of a like brick and mortar company. So he says we have to be able to sell our vision to our immediate team, the organizational leadership, the rest of the company, down the chain, and then across the organization. So to me, even though immediate team makes you think like team impact, to me, our immediate team of stakeholders is our family. So being able to talk to our family about why we're doing this, what the vision is for doing Plexus in the first place. And if we can sell our vision to our family, then they're going to be on board to help us with that. And some of you might have thought of this differently. So I'm interested to see how you guys thought of it too. But this is when I was reading through, I was kind of trying to apply it to my thought. So immediate team to me is like, okay, my husband's on my team and my daughter now is on my team. Why am I doing this and spending time doing it, taking away from family time when it could be propelling me forward, right? So our immediate team needs to be on board. The organizational leadership to me is like our power partners or our upline. And then the rest of the company down the chain would be our downline. And then across the organization, to me, was like when we come up with systems that could benefit not just team impact, right? That we're doing videos for Pink Power or other smaller teams within Pink Power, or when we're posting, selling our vision and posting is selling our vision to our peers and to people that we want to join us in this, like whether it's the business or the product. So sometimes selling our vision is really through posting and talking to people about doing this with us. So that's how I thought of it. Definitely, we all could have interpreted a little bit differently, but to me, those are the people that we really do need to sell this vision to. So, okay, he says to first start with your direct reports. So again, to me, that's like our family, our power partners. Those are the ones that are going to really be key in selling our vision to them. So when we have input from those stakeholders, that's going to help us improve our vision. And then those people, if they're part of that conversation, they're more willing to support what they shape, is what he says. So if you say to your family, I'm doing this, like I remember in the past, somebody said, I have told my family, like, when I get to this rank, I want to take us all on this trip. Then they're more likely to say, okay, yeah, mom's busy because she's doing XYZ, because she's going to help us have this awesome trip. Or let's say you're doing a large event with your team and you say, okay, Power Partners and Upline, these were my thoughts for it. Then we all kind of collaborate together, and everybody's more likely to buy in when they feel like they've been part of the process and designing what's going to be going on next. So definitely learning to sell to those people is really important. But with selling your vision, there can be some challenges, and that's what he talks about next. So the change challenge. There are some people that are going to be really open to change. Let's say you have a new idea, your vision is a little different than what it's been before. There will be people that meet you with a little bit of resistance because they're not so sure. And then there are people that are like, go with the flow, let's do it. I'm excited to see where it goes. So an example I thought in Plexus right now, well, a couple things. We started a new team page in February, and that was a huge change for all of us, right? We were a part of Pink Power for a long time, and then Rock Your Purpose, and then we decided let's have a new team page. And I'm sure that there were some people that were like, heck yeah, I'm excited. We're going to do some great things. And then I'm sure there were people that were like, wait, what does this mean? Why are we doing this? Is my role going to change? Like, just confused, didn't know what the purpose was. And so that we had to tell everybody, like, these are the reasons why it's going to benefit all of us if we're doing these changes. The other change that's come up company wide is that now the welcome packs being the same price as the next subscription. And there are going to be people that are like, I don't understand why that is. And Plexus really, they had to sell the vision to us that this is going to benefit us. These are the reasons why it's actually going to be helpful for our business. So there are people that might be not so sure about that. And then there will be people that are excited about that. When we do have things that are going to change, we have to make sure that we say, for the people that need certainty, there's some changes happening, right? But here's what's not going to change. So then they feel like there is still certainty moving forward, and there's nothing to be afraid of with that. The next challenge would be the personnel challenge. So I kind of alluded to this before, but sometimes people would say like, is my job, my title, my compensation, or my role going to change? But people that want to grow will see these changes, and they may have to learn how to stretch and grow and kind of get past that in order to further their business. People often want to know what's in it for me. So when you're selling a vision to people, you have to not just word it in a framework of like what it's going to do for the company, but what is it going to do for that person. So keep that in mind. And I think we're, as a company and especially as a team, we're really good at being others focused. So whenever you're going to have a potential change, making sure that you're telling people that there's really a benefit to them as well. And then the feedback challenge. He says, don't skip this part. It's really easy to want to skip getting feedback because sometimes it can be uncomfortable, but feedback is really important. So we need to make sure that we're willing and open to receiving feedback and not taking things personally and things like that. Okay, I took so many notes, you guys. I don't want to necessarily read the whole book to you, but I think that there's a lot of good nuggets in here. So he talked then about selling up, selling across, selling down. And those are the ones that I wanted to highlight. So selling up. Thankfully, in Plexus, there aren't bosses. So we don't need to have these scary meetings with our boss and watch their body language necessarily, right? Like some of the stuff he was saying in there was like, well, that doesn't necessarily apply because thankfully we don't have bosses and we don't have to be afraid to talk to our uplines about ideas that we have. And I think that's also part of just our culture as well. But we have a lot of open-minded people that are willing to change things a lot of times or try something new. And sorry, I'm trying to read through my notes too. the only resistance I could think of that you might have if you're talking to your upline about something is that your upline typically has a really great bird's eye view of what's going on in your business and what has worked in the past and what hasn't worked in the past. So I can just think of a few times when people would say, I want to do this challenge with my team and give them prizes for doing X, Y, and Z. And we're like, hey, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. We want you to be successful, but lean into what Plexus is already offering. You don't have to give your team hundreds of dollars worth of prizes. You don't have to create a contest for your team every single month. I think sometimes people really just want to give to their team and incentivize, but Plexus already does incentivize so many things. And if we lean into that, it really makes it a lot more duplicatable. So typically, if you do get any resistance or pushback from your upline, it's because they have gone through it before or have tried it before and have noticed this is what works and this is what doesn't. But typically, people are pretty open to trying things again or just having some kind of ways to tweak it to make it feel like it'll be a little more successful for you too. So again, I didn't think the selling up totally applied because there are no bosses, but definitely always feel free to go to your upline if you have a new vision or idea, because maybe it'd be something that could be helpful for everyone. But not only that, but they might have just some insider information of, yeah, we tried that a couple years ago, or this is why I wouldn't recommend that. And just so that you're not wasting your resources as well. We have to be able to sell across. So this is selling to our peers, colleagues, our power partners. And so the example I thought of is every single month, your leaders and team impact have a meeting at the end of the month to talk about what do we want to do for the next month. And we're talking about our vision that we have for moving forward. Where's everybody going? What do people need? And then before we say, hey, team, this is what we're doing, we have a meeting to decide these are the things that are going to be the most effective. So just know that when you're hearing what we're doing for the next month, there's been a lot of planning involved in that because we are learning to talk to each other about it first, and we're selling across to each other and saying, I think this would work. I think this would work. And then later we sell that to everybody else. Now, let's say you're not part of that planning team. This can still apply to you too, because let's say you want to do an event for the people that are on your team. Like you're a gold and you have a couple new shares and you want to have an event. You still have to talk to the people that share and say, hey, what day works for you? I have this idea to do this event. Would you be interested in sharing that responsibility with me? And then you tell the people that you want to invite. So it can definitely spread for everybody listening to this. You're a leader in making some changes and planning some things for your team as well. And then selling down, the main thing he talks about here is just communication. I think a lot of times we get worried that we're going to over communicate or repeat ourselves too often. But something that I have noticed in the, almost 6 years that I've been doing Plexus is that people need repetition. So saying things over and over and over again might be what's necessary. So, yeah, don't feel like you're ever over communicating because sometimes people need to hear it multiple times. And just be clear with your communication. And that's what I have for that. So that was question 7. I know I said a lot of things, so hopefully you guys have some really good thoughts as well. And then question 8 is, we talked a little bit about resistance in chapter 7, but how should you face resistance? If you do have resistance or a little bit of pushback, what do we do? There were a couple quotes in the beginning that I wanted to share because I just thought they were good. One on like the left side of the page was, impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. I thought that was really powerful. And then Mike Tyson had a quote in there too that I thought was funny that said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So we all have plans, but we're all going to face some sort of resistance in some way or another. In fact, one of the other quotes later on, maybe on the first or second page of this chapter, said, there are a few constants in life, but resistance is one. There are really no action or friction-free visions, and the best of us are going to face hardships. miscalculations, setbacks, disappointments, and other barriers to success. But the question will be not if you face setbacks, but how do you respond when it happens? There's a few different types of resistance he talks about. The first one is environmental. And he had a lot of really good examples of this. And I wanted to read one of them that I thought was funny, but also very telling too. So Uber specifically was one of them he talked about. And the environmental resistance was like, well, basically in 1998, we would tell people don't get into a car with strangers. And then in 2008, don't meet with people from the internet alone. And then in 2019, Uber comes along and it's order yourself a stranger from the internet to get in a car with alone. So visions change, environments change, just what we have access to changes. So just be aware that there can be environmental resistance like that. The example in Plexus again was that I thought of was just welcome packs changing again. So people won't understand why necessarily Plexus made that decision, but once they do understand, they'll learn that it's actually beneficial for all of us. And then social, you could have social resistance. I really liked the example he used in the book about the doctor that wanted to recommend hand washing to prevent moms from dying during labor. And there were so many people that gave that man pushback, which to now just boggles my mind. Like, of course, we're going to be washing our hands and wearing gloves. But it was a really big social issue, and there's a lot of resistance to that change. And then it wasn't until that person died that they found out, oh yeah, this was actually a really great idea. But so one big social challenge or social setback I found or I thought of that probably a lot of us face is just in general doing this business because it's not the status quo. It's not the norm. It's against the grain. You know, it's something that not everybody does. And so there could be some of us that have pushback and resistance in that way. But if we still show up and do the things, we can be very, very successful. And then psychological resistance, of course, is just being our own worst enemies. So having doubts, anxieties, fears, and all of us can probably raise our hands and say we've had one of those at some point doing this business. So very, very normal. So when you do have resistance, you have to stay connected to your why, which we talk about all the time. So remembering why we're doing it, remember what our vision is, and that's what's going to keep us consistent. And then there are 3 traits that help us beat resistance, which are tenacity, integrity, and courage. So tenacity, showing up despite rejection, despite no's, hearing people not interested, keep showing up anyway. Integrity, a Zig Ziglar quote in this section was, integrity alone won't make you a leader, but without integrity, you will never be one. So having good integrity. And then courage, similar to tenacity, but showing up even when the excitement slows, even when you're feeling like you're not as excited anymore. Action will breed action. So if you're feeling that way, the cure to feeling like things aren't exciting is to show up anyway and take action and get moving. And that's going to get the ball rolling. So having tenacity, integrity, and courage. So that's all I have. I'm hoping you guys have some really great takeaways too. And I will open up the floor now.
I loved your point of view of selling it to your family. Like when I was reading that, I definitely didn't think about selling the vision to the family. It has something that I've naturally done with them without thinking about it too much. And luckily they've bought into me, you know, so they're on board and support me. But yeah, I think those are sometimes the hardest critics, right? Like selling to the family. Now, and my husband and kids are on board with me. My extended family, you know, I haven't quite sold it to them yet. They're a little harder to work with. But having that support in the home is key. And I think we really do a lot of coaching on that, you know, individually with our team, because that can be one of the hardest things. So yeah, selling it, teaching, you know, getting them to dream with you, getting them to see the bigger vision and what you're working towards, because you are taking time away from them to do this and to build it. I remember when my kids were younger, I was working, obviously as a physical therapist, and a patient was just like really mean and grumpy. And I thought in my head, like, I'm taking time away from my children to deal with you. Like I was just like, so I needed to buy into my work that, at that time. Where with Plexus, I'm like, this is gonna, give us opportunity to spend more time together when I'm able to, do Plexus full time and not have to worry about my job during the daytime. So yeah, getting them involved, the short-term sacrifice for the long-term gain. So yeah, I thought that was a really great point that you brought up there.
Thank you. I think that's just one of those things that I see so often of people needing to get their families buy-in, especially I feel like husbands a lot of times are like, why are you doing this? And so if we can learn to dream together, that's really important, just like you mentioned. So yeah.
Well, after
Go ahead.
Fallon was talking about that Grant Cardone stuff, I was listening to a couple of his podcasts. If the title looked like something that was something that I pertained to me, right? I didn't just randomly listen, but he was even saying too, when it comes to this kind of thing with vision, like keep the naysayers out, like those friends or the extended family. Like he definitely had buy-in from his wife and his close friends when he was starting his crazy, not crazy, but his successful businesses where he just was like, go, 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 go. And he just really set big goals, big vision, big, like huge, huge expectations of himself. And it kind of goes along with this. Like we need to expect big of us. And it has all these examples of these companies that were like kind of happy with the status quo and not looking forward to the future, they sank because they weren't. And now look at Sears. Like Sears did this great thing so many years ago, and then they didn't and then they really, really grew because they did so many. My dad was a Sears repairman. That was his job for a long time until he went back to school for some other stuff when Sears kind of booted him out. So Sears had like a repair company, a parts company, right? My dad used to just walk into Sears and go to the back room and get the washing machine or dryer or fridge part he would need and go fix stuff. And they had, the lawnmowers and the tools, their own tool brand, like, competing with Home Depot and competing with JC Penney and competing with whatever. But then they didn't find a way to survive this economy and these changes that happened as, the future has come. And so when we have to be forward thinking and have that big, huge expectations of ourselves and that big vision of ourselves. And then also, when we have the people that just are not supportive, like we have to be able to say, just don't say anything. Like if you don't have anything nice, don't say anything. I can still be your friend. I want to hang out with you. You're my friend, all of that. But really surrounding yourself with people that are rooting for you too, is kind of what came to mind with all of this. So.
That's so good. When Lauren, when you were talking about that, getting the buy-in and casting the vision to your team, but then it's your family first. Like I've never really thought of it that way either. But lately I have been like sharing a little bit more with my family. And some of us, if you're like me, you think they know what your intentions are with your business because it's right here in your mind every day. So you just think that they must know, like you must have told them already. But like for my mom, even, who is one of my biggest supporters, like me going on this cruise, some of my family does not understand. And for me, like, yes, I earned it and it will be so fun. Like, there's so many fun things, but it's still for my business. So there is, it is not easy for me to go and leave my kids, but the importance of my business is like so high on my priority list that I can't not go. And it's funny, like when that incentive dropped, you're like, I'm going. Like everyone's like, I have to go. Like you're not even thinking of the obstacles in your way. And so you earn it, you do all these things to earn it. And then you're like, oh, actually going, like there's some stuff I got to do on top of that. And one of them is getting the buy-in from my family because they have to watch my kids. And my mom, like I told my mom, we were talking about it on the phone last week. And I was just kind of like telling her how I was feeling. And, you know, sometimes it's not all like rainbows and happy excitement. And I wouldn't like, I made sure to get my vision in there before she could even come back with an objection because I wanted her to like, oh, like, I guess I didn't know that. And that's exactly what happened. She's like, oh, sorry, sis. Like, not everyone's seeing it like that. Like, nobody actually is seeing it like that. I'm like, in my brain, I'm like, wow, okay. I had never said it the way that I had just said it before. So, without rambling on, like, that is one perfect example of getting the buy in from your family and actually casting that vision to them, too.
Along similar lines, well, I have a couple things to say. I felt the same way with Mexico this year. I ended up going by myself, my 3-month-old with my husband. Thankfully, he was like, go have fun. I'll watch her. It's all good. And because I've been doing this long enough, he knows that it's important. It's part of the business. And not only is it an amazing vacation, but there's also other things that come along with it as well. But then, oh, what was the other example I was thinking of? Oh, I might have to stop and come back to it. But I was thinking of the same thing when you mentioned that, Jade, where it looks like we're just going on flashy vacations and a lot of it is very fun. But there's a business aspect to it, and it's important for people to see us earning things, and it's important to where you learn a lot on those trips and you get in community with people. And so yeah, it's not really an option to skip something like that. Oh, I don't remember what I was going to say. When we're doing Plexus, right? We're on our phones a lot, and that can look like we are just scrolling and avoiding doing like housework or whatever. So getting your family to buy in and saying like, no, I'm actually doing work from my phone. I'm not like, this is the vision, like this is what I'm actually doing. This is what it looks like. And then I'm doing it because of this will help them understand why you're doing it too. I think especially with little kids, I've heard this from people on my teams before. Their kids are like, Mom, why are you on your phone all the time? And it looks like they're just ignoring them or something. And so they have to say, I'm actually working, and having them understand that you're not just, you know, playing Candy Crush or something on your phone or scrolling social media for fun. You're actually doing work. And it can actually be really powerful once they do get the buy-in, because then they say, oh, mommy's working really hard. And then it's showing them a good example as well.
You guys all had so many good examples. And I mean, I've struggled with this periodically as well. I mean, just last month we were in Mexico, and then in 2 weeks, we're going to be in the Caribbean. And my family's like, you're leaving your kids again? I'm like, yes, I am. And Damon is coming with me. And it is important for work. It is important for my relationship with my husband. It is important to build these strong relationships and get built up, because in parent mode, we are like, I give you this and I give you this and I give you this, and you don't even think until there's nothing left of you. So it's so important a lot of times to make sure that you're building that back up and not listening to those negative Nellies. And the quote here on page 168. So what if we didn't allow all those doubts and limiting beliefs to have the last word? Since your vision is a snapshot of a new, brighter future, isn't it worth overcoming the stumbling blocks that are internal resistance and fear thrown our path? And it's so, so important. So Like even today at school, it was grandparents mass and I was there and I saw one of my former patients and she's like, oh, I miss you. What are you, as a PT? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. She's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, in 2020, I had a reality shift of where it was more important for me to be, and being able to be more involved and be there for my family was so much more important. And now I can help with the school and have my home business and be there when my family needs me. So making sure that you've got that so set in your head that when somebody's like, what the heck are you doing? You're like, this is what I'm doing, and this is why it's good. So make sure you have that in your head. So when somebody's like, you're doing what? And that you're not embarrassed to say that you're doing network marketing and this is why you're doing it and what the future is going to be for you. And then those little negative voices just go, nothing. It's so important to have those set for you, because if you don't have them set for yourself, your team is not going to follow and they're going to have that wishy-washiness. So when the first little negative thing comes up, they're like, peace out, I can't do this. So you want to be a good, strong leader for them, because they're only going to be half as strong as you are, if that, typically. So something to definitely keep in mind.
I love the idea of having like just your for sure statement in your head ready, because there will be times when you encounter it and you're not ever ready for it, for somebody to be like, why are you doing that? And I still have people in my life that just don't understand it. And I recently, not like in the last week, but in the last half a year, have talked to Jackie and Elizabeth about it, about these people in my life that are not necessarily the most supportive. And they're like, well, are they somebody that you have to have in your life? Is it your family? And it wasn't. So it's like, maybe people that aren't your family, that aren't your stakeholders, that aren't supportive, don't let their voice be louder than your own or than the people that are supporting you. And also, maybe those are the type of people that you have to distance from a little bit. If they don't need to be in your life, not that you don't want to lose friends over this. That's not what I'm saying, but I am saying, like, maybe they're just there to talk about non-Plexus things, or your relationship is just not surrounded by what you do for work, and that's okay. Or maybe you just spend a little less time with them than you used to because they're not understanding what you're doing, and they don't need to. But if your vision is strong enough and you have the right people that are supporting you, and you're surrounded by more people than support you than don't, then those are the people that need to be the primary voices in your head.
And this just came to mind too. Heard it on a coaching call. The people in your life are going to respect your business the way that you do. So if you, this is something I struggle with, not so much now, but like literally I've just stopped struggling with it within the last like 2 months. Like I struggled with it before. So if you are, it's fine. Just you can change it. Like you have company over. I'm a stay-at-home mom. Grandparents want to visit their grandkids. So that's something like, it's not a special occasion for a grandparent to come to my house. That doesn't mean I can't work. Does that make sense? Like I had to like start saying like, yeah, I am going to go work. And it was never them making it hard. It was me making it hard. They were never thinking of my business ever because it's not theirs. So in my head, all of those thoughts, those are we put up our own barriers. Once I started setting myself in my room 10 feet away from where they were playing anyways, I wasn't even playing with them really. I was just like, not really involved that much. Now they say, do you need to go work? I'll watch your kids. Like it was when that first happened, I was like, what? Yes, I do. I need to leave. Thank you. Bye. So yeah, if you haven't done that, definitely try it.
That was very powerful for everybody to hear. Jade saying like people are going to respect your business the amount that you do. So if you're like, it's fine, I can do it later, or, you're not showing that you're taking it seriously, then they're not going to take it seriously either. And I think we all needed to hear that. I think that was great.
Well, and I think too, what we're doing in the positive influence that we're having with our vision and what we're doing and these books and whatnot has such a trickle down effect on people, even if they're not plexusing, so to speak. I mean, even just working on habits and mindsets and those different shifts. You know, I had one of the ladies at school today say, "Hey, I'm listening to a book and I thought of you. It's called Atomic Habits. I thought you'd be proud of me for listening to that." I'm like, yes, what are you getting out of it? So implementing those things in our daily lives, it doesn't have to be plastic plexus yet. It's just a positive influence and they continue to follow you. So, you know, you don't have to just, like I say, be barfing plexus all day long. Talk about some of the things that we're learning and growing on because people will follow that because life is hard, you guys. It's difficult. This parenting thing, it's hard. Whether you got young ones, old ones, little ones, or you're parenting parents, it's not easy. And the more things that we can come up with to help others out is awesome.
I actually had that happen the other day. Speaking of Atomic Habits, for those of you that don't know, I'm a physical therapist and I had a patient that was very grumpy. Very grumpy. I was like really nervous to see him because he would only allow me to see him twice. And so I was like, that's fine. And very, very grumpy. Anyway, I told him about habit stacking because he's like, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to prioritize doing that in my daily life. I'm like, well, why are you even here then? If you're not going to listen to my advice, why are you here? I didn't say that. But I said, how about you do this already 5 times a day? So when you're doing this activity, do this exercise for less than a minute because it's something that doesn't require a lot of time. And then you'll be doing it throughout the day. And he's like, oh, that's a really good idea. So these things that we're talking about and learning about, yeah, they're important for plexus, like Jackie said, but this is really going to be helping us grow as people. And I think when people see that, then they respect you more too. They should respect you anyway. But when you're learning and growing and developing yourself, people can tell and they can feel that shift.
And I think too, you know, when you're consistently adding those value things to people, it makes it easier to quote unquote sell people on other things because they see the changes that you're offering and the positive shifts that you've had for you and others. So offering somebody some advice on some different health things isn't such a big jump because you're already adding good things to their life.
Absolutely. There have been so many good examples tonight and lots of talking, which I love. Does anybody else have anything they want to share?
There was another just little thing that stood out to me on back on 139 and the change challenge. And he said the goal with selling is gaining alignment, not changing people. And I thought that was really cool because, you know, a lot of people will come in, well, I can't take these products because I don't eat healthy, or, you know, that they're kind of their own objections and different things. And so, you know, encouraging, and we get to coach and walk alongside people and help them slowly make improvements in their life, not necessarily like, oh yeah, well, you need to only eat salads and protein. Like, you know, come on. Like we want to be relatable in the way that we live real lives. We are about health and filling in the gaps, but it isn't about perfection. And that's the same in our business. Like, yes, we all want to follow the same basic habits and behaviors in our business, right? But when I write a post, like it's me, like I can't not be me when I sit and really just type out what's on my heart at that moment. And we want to operate as ourselves and align as this with one vision, align with one goal in mind, right? I mean, and then we have our vision outside of our team of what we want to do personally when we continue to grow this, you know, legacy business and stuff. So anyway, just kind of in all areas, like new people coming into the business, people coming in to use the products, our current business builders and product users, we're helping them to come into alignment with us, and it's more of an invitation than it is like go change everything about your whole life. That's not going to work for anyone. So it just stood out to me. There's some other stuff too, but I won't go over and over everything either.
That was a really great point too. I know it's easy to just point out every single thing that he says because there's so much good stuff packed into these chapters. Anybody else have any takeaways they want to share? All right. Well, thank you again for all the talking and input tonight. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week.